when we get a few more people into the room, a few things that I think would be interesting to chat about is um, one, take a little time, shared a list with me to remind me that we have some feature requests for NFTreasure that are currently being voted on. And so we could go through some of the top feature requests there, and I'll give some thoughts on maybe when the right time to activate some of these feature requests are, and what the voting process could look like. You know, currently we kind of need to just build out the core functionality before we start to put icing on the cake, and so we can talk a little bit about that. However, there are some that I think should be built into the base layer. One particularly that I liked, that if we're in agreement, which would be pretty simple to add, is a burn counter that showcases how much smarter has been burned and how much treasure is being burned, because that'll just be a fun indicator to showcase that we truly are creating some supply demand equilibrium as we play the game and build out the DeFi loop. We can also talk a little bit about, I made an announcement earlier this morning that with NFTreasure, one of the things that we're pivoting towards is essentially having a SaaS product that is an NFT creator product. And I think that came as a surprise to some people. And I just wanted to talk about how that decision came about and why it wasn't put to a community vote. Um, Really, the reason is that we had already built out 80% of that as part of the internal minter that we needed internally just to be able to mint multiple NFTs. And so the back end of that was already robust enough where it wasn't going to require a large budget or a large amount of time to port it into something that was consumer facing. And the potential value add from a revenue perspective, I think is high enough and interesting enough as a promotional mechanism that we just went ahead and moved forward with it. So um, it, I think it's just going to be another thing that sets our marketplace apart, because really one of the things that we can promote is how easy it is for an artist to take their artwork and turn it into either a standalone collection or a generative art collection. And of course, all of those mentor pages will live at nftreasure.com/John Ray or whatever the profile is. And then we'll probably have some kind of a branded iframe that could be pasted into an external website. So it's going to be a pretty cool tool set. I think it's going to allow us to onboard creators into our marketplace in a way that other marketplaces are not able to do. And it will also allow us to have interesting information pointing to other marketplaces that are out there, because uh, we'll be able, the minter is going to be set up where you can kind of select the marketplace that you want to mint into. So anything minted through our minter app will be available on the NFTreasure marketplace, but you could also mint it into OpenSea or LooksRare. And so right now we're exploring what that multi-chain minting functionality looks like. For any network that is that's EVM compatible, it's going to be pretty simple for us to port just about everything that we've built. And so we're getting to the stage as we finalize the VE Treasure contract where we're going to be looking into, okay, what does it look like to have cross-chain functionality? Is this a good use of our time and resources at this point in the project? And if not fully multi-chain, maybe we can still have our data aggregator looking at NFT projects that are multi-chain and pointing into those. Anyhow, we can get into a deeper conversation about some of that. On the Jade side, there's not a ton of updates other than we have brought in, last week, Avi and I mentioned that we're bringing in a quality assurance team. And so they're going through and kind of doing an internal audit of the bonding contracts, making sure that everything's good there. One of my KPIs for the coming quarter is going to be to kind of move us into a more fully decentralized development environment. And so we've had some conversations with a cool new protocol called Wonderverse. It's basically like a Web3 Trello board, but basically what it allows us to do is start to create task-based bounties for different development projects and things that we want to do. And so rather than owning everything internally, we will start to have a public developer board where if you are skilled in Solidity or Rust or one of the programs that something needs to be done in, basically we'll say, okay, if you complete this and submit it as a pull request and we accept the pull request, then you'll receive this bounty. So it's going to be a way for us to start to grow out our developer community. And I think that can be a really interesting way to just build a deeper sense of trust, knowing that the community has the means to direct not only the way that the marketing and messaging goes, and elevate proposals on the investment side, but also having this tightly knit developer community that we can build out as well. So likely what that looks like is opening a discourse account, which you've probably, if you've been in crypto for any period of time, you've probably interfaced with a discourse forum and maybe not even known it. It's how a lot of projects elevate proposals to a quorum, and then those proposals, once they're at a quorum, usually are moved to an on-chain vote by the core team or by some kind of an internal council. So I've been meeting with several community members that, are really interested in what the idea of like a true DAO council could look like. And we've been putting together, brainstorming some ideas and putting together, what could ultimately become a kind of constitution, both for Jade and NFTreasure. So at some point at some point we definitely will share that with the community for feedback. And then the idea would be that once we're in agreement on a constitution, we can start to move forward in building out the discourse forum, and basically the escalation path for anyone to submit a feature request on the dev side or an investment proposal on the front end side. And part of that would be finalizing and building out the unicorn submission board, where moving forward, those would be public facing. They'll be formatted in a way where it's easy to understand kind of the certain pieces of each proposal, and then we can vote those up and down. So anyhow, forward thinking, that's kind of something that is important to me and seems interesting to me, and it also is going to allow us to likely become more legally compliant, and kind of legitimize Jade DAO as an entity, so that we can do more interesting things as a community, including short trading and having a presence on centralized exchanges. It just opens us up to, potential IRL deals. So part of the maturation process of this protocol is just getting all of these things in place and operating within the limited regulatory clarity that we have. So as more and more of that comes out, and if you're paying attention, there's all kinds of interesting conversations around crypto happening right now. And so we want to just make sure that we're following those best practices preemptively so that we can take a seat at the table as we move into the next wave of crypto. So I guess that's the update that I have for now. Ono or anybody else, feel free to come up to the stage and we can open up questions or talk about whatever you want. And at some point, we'll jump into these feature requests from NFTreasure.
Yeah, hey John, how's it going? Glad to be here. Glad to see you in another space.
Yeah. thanks for the nudge on starting to do these again. Ono was one of the people that just mentioned that these were valuable for the community. But one of the interesting things that he pointed out was that they are valuable for me, because when I get talking like this, usually I have some of my best ideas.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, and really, it just came from a place of not only wanting to see you excel, but the community and the project that you stand behind also. And then for other reasons too that I mentioned, where I feel like there's just a lot of wisdom to glean off of you. We just have to get you to speak, you know.
Well,
So
I appreciate
once we
that.
get you talking, yeah, absolutely. Once we get you talking, I mean, if for people who have ears and want to build or want to listen, man, there's a lot of gems you drop, and sometimes I don't even think you know it, but you operate at a level that maybe we're not privy to or accustomed to. So to kind of receive that for free and almost without you knowing, it's just a pleasure, I got to say. But I do want to get into a couple questions because I seen the thread you posted earlier, which I was super excited to see because, as you began to float around the news of like, okay, you have to think of these projects as a business where you want actual cash flow, fresh cash flow coming in. And even for myself, where and this is not a shill, I promise. Even as I began to build on AVAX, I think that's something that's always been on my mind. And ever since I read, I go through a lot of NFT projects and I read a lot of the roadmaps, and all of them try to just recycle their consumer base, their current base, into putting more money into into their treasury or to buy merch or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And I'm like, I don't find that as a sustainable model because the next shiny thing that comes up, people are just going to go right to it.
Yep.
So to have something sustainable like you're talking about and to go more into it, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but the software as a service, and you guys are doing a no software NFT generation. I'm assuming for the marketplace, is that right?
Yeah, so basically well, I'll let you finish your thought and then I'll go into it. But yeah, it'll mint into the marketplace, but we're also looking into how to set it up where if you want to, immediately list it somewhere else, or if you don't want to mint on AVAX and you want to mint on Ethereum, how to directly mint into OpenSea. So
Wow.
we're still exploring some of the extent of that feature set, but it looks like it would be relatively easy to, well, nothing's easy, but but easier than doing it totally custom. And so we're exploring some of those options.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I think about that and how powerful that is, I mean, I have so many thoughts that ride on just this one subject, but I'll keep it brief. Um, that's just an amazing thing to where you can create a project from we'll call it a base station and then vector it out to different marketplaces. That's a super powerful tool, and I'm eager to see that. But for that, you guys still plan on going forward with a local marketplace, is that right?
100%. So, one of the interesting things that we'll have to discuss before we launch it is kind of what the SaaS payment model will be. So there's a few different ways to think about it. One would be a larger upfront fee where the project basically just pays outright for access to the Minter DApp. And maybe that fee is directly correlated to how many pieces are in the collection and how many layers or how much rarity is in the collection. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be to have it as a monthly recurring fee. And one thing that we're looking into is some of the open source like website builders. So, most NFT websites are relatively simple in nature. And so we could create kind of maybe 3 templatized websites that kind of cover everything that you would want to share in an NFT project. And part of that fee would be you get the minter. So it's a no code release of the NFT. People come to NFTreasure / your profile in order to mint it. Or you could use our potentially website tool, depending on how usable some of the open source code is. This might be something that we could implement where you could have your own landing page that has the minter connected to it, and you would pay a monthly fee for that. The other interesting option, and then this could be in tandem with one of the other two, is that the NF Treasury, let's call it that, the NF Treasury would own a percentage of the mint. So this could be an interesting option if you're an artist who maybe doesn't have the startup funds to release your collection, but you have great art. And so we could have, maybe it's a curated thing, or maybe anybody could do it. We can decide as a community, but we would take, 4 or 5% of anything that you mint, and that fee would go directly into the treasury. And then we could also decide, maybe if you don't have to pay anything up front, maybe we also build into the contract that we take 5% of secondary sales as well. So it becomes a much more interesting mechanism for one, growing the space as the whole. And one of my goals in everything that I do, but in crypto especially, is to grow the pie, not steal from other people's pie. And I think we're in the perfect position in the marketplace where we can create a tool that is attractive to new entrants into the space, and we can be their first experience with crypto. And if that's a really beautiful experience for them, then now we've created a crypto advocate for life, and that serves everyone in the space.
Yeah, and that's, as I've been in these spaces now for 6 to 8 months, fairly recently, I began to talk about how are we going to make AVAX as a layer one more robust? How are we going to create a more competitive NFT ecosystem compared to Solana, Ethereum? And I was telling people, creating a very, very low barrier to entry. And I had that opinion as I was developing. Over the past 3 weeks, I pretty much went from zero to hero, taking my own project, doing the art, generating it, smart contract, and then deploying it to then sell out. That was over a 2-week period, and it took a lot of sleepless nights. Like, I mean 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. I was watching YouTube videos. I was taking courses, a lot, the whole nine. And for you to come through and just really, you can reduce all of that down to just realistically 50%, 75% is amazing. And I think when you take people, because I think a lot of people have great ideas. Like I see Dash here, Jay, Doug, Chad. We've all talked before, and we all have amazing ideas. It's just a lot of us are I don't want to say paywalled, but for lack of better words, we're paywalled, or we don't have the skill. So if we just have good ideas, and this is just ecosystem wide, if we can have the tools available to take an idea and then just plug and play and then deploy, like, I think that's going to make the ecosystem far more robust, and it's going to help grow AVAX, because that's kind of where we're all beginning to make a home. So definitely great news.
I agree 100%. And I mean, let's not forget that we have this agency back end of NFTreasure. So the natural byproduct of somebody bringing their project to mint on NFTreasure, and now let's say that they are able to mint even 25% of their project. Now they're sitting on a community purse, and in the back end of their NFTreasure admin panel, we're going to say, hey, are you looking for help, minting out your project, or do you need development help to build out your roadmap? Hire the NFTreasure agency. And so it's actually, even if there were no fees attached to it, it would still operate as a loss leader into the agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to have one more thing before I go, and this is more from like a personal question. And this will be the last time I mention it. For my, from ever since I started my own project, it seems like there's a lot of pressure, right? Because I want my project to be me as an artist, but also some fiduciary responsibility. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, because I wear all the hats for the project at the moment, and I definitely don't have a team or any collaborators. The fiduciary part is kind of stressful. So, for you, maybe if you can just break it down a little bit, like, what are some things that you could see small projects like me taking on to still build and develop and create, but not creating this I would say, leash or ball and chain of the fiduciary part, because I do want to honor, if you're our holder of my, like, I want to honor that, and I want to deliver value. Just, that's kind of foundational to my project, is just delivering value across multiple spaces. What are your thoughts on that, and how can I kind of remedy that?
Yeah, well, one of the primary products of the agency that we will likely require anybody that wants to work with us to purchase as a step one product is something that I call a knowledge gap analysis. And it's basically a way of doing market research to understand what is it that the community you're looking to attract is actually interested in, and what are they oh, my phone's buzzing. Okay, I think I'm still here. What are the frustrations that allow you to solve some of those frustrations for them? And so, what a knowledge gap analysis is we basically we do a community map. So we say, okay, based on the themes of your project, we are going to go into these 10 to 100 discords, and we're going to use these things that we call seed phrases, which are basically search terms that I've fine-tuned over the years and through some of the coaching programs that I'm in, to basically find frustrations in a forum. And then we identify all of these pain points, and we write our marketing copy in a way that showcases that our product is solving those pain points and speaking directly to them and using the exact language that people are using in Discord. But where this becomes infinitely valuable above and beyond just hype marketing is that it actually allows you to see what problems people attach value to and what problems aren't being solved in the marketplace. And so when you're sitting on a community purse, that community purse can provide value by solving a problem. It doesn't necessarily have to just be a treasury that's being invested into liquid assets. Everybody is trying to do that kind of community governed treasury model. And for most people, it's probably not going to turn out well because most people are not professional fund managers. And so a better way to think about it is from the perspective of actual entrepreneurship. The way that you think about starting a business is, what problem exists in the marketplace that I can specifically solve? And you just use your community purse to solve a problem that people would be willing to spend money to have solved, and then you token gate access to that solution. And so one of the things that our agency will be able to help people do is build out that market research so that people can actually understand what's needed in the marketplace, what problems can they immediately solve, what is one problem that would deliver enough value to justify what was collected in the community purse. And then you just build that out and token gate it for anyone with your NFT. And now, if that was a strong enough problem in the marketplace, you also have strong secondary sales because there's always going to be other people that have that problem and want it solved.
No, that's definitely an awesome thought. Thanks, John. I'll let Tweet kind of have the floor. If it goes quiet, I definitely have more questions, but thank you.
Yeah, would love to dive into deeper. Tweetbit, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me
Yeah.
here. I have something I just want to bring up as a general idea that you can think about over the coming days and weeks as this is being developed, is kill your darlings, like they say in writing, in editing.
Yeah.
Remove the barriers to entry as much as you can by meaning as few clicks as possible. You know this from working at Google. Make things very simple and hide the complexity underneath the simple.
Yeah.
Again, it's you're aware of this. You have the experience of doing it. But I want to bring that forward because I see redundancies on the front end. Like some websites I interact with, there'll be the same information in two different clicks. And what we're trying to do as a Web3 community overall is make it so that if you're not having a good health day, or if you're having problems thinking, that it's so simple that you can use it even in that mental state. So that's what I'm hoping for next year, 2, 3, 4 years, to where it becomes so simple that it's like using an Apple product. It's like using a Google product. It's pretty much intuitive.
Yeah.
And this idea is riding off of what you were saying and what OX No Fire was saying with regards to barrier of entry. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. And, a lot of times the way that I see development happening is it starts in a somewhat chaotic space. Like it is a creativity just in general is just chaotic energy, I think. And so our job as entrepreneurs and um project runners and as a community that's governing this project is then to order that chaos in the right way. And so that's what some of the beta testing is. That's what's been actually some of the fun part of this project is, unlike a regular project where you work really hard on everything and then you release it and you hope it's right. It's kind of been nice to just release everything in pieces, when it's still in the brainstorming stage, and be like, oh, that doesn't work, and then address it right then. So that's kind of been, from an entrepreneurial perspective, a really great way. Like, I don't think I would ever want to build a business in a different way, because it's nice to have that immediate feedback. But what is required as a community governed project is for people to have hard opinions on things, because that iron sharpens iron. And so when you have a hard opinion on something, it forces everybody else to solidify their opinion, and we can really get to an understanding of what is the actual right way forward to organize some of the frenetic energy that still exists. So we definitely aren't there yet with NFTreasure. There's still some of that chaotic energy, and in a lot of ways that's good, because there can be magic in chaos. But the magic comes from ordering it properly. And so our job as a community is to be watchdogs of everything that's happening, and then honestly share our opinion, not in a mean way, but in a constructive way. If there's a better way of doing things, let's make sure that we say it out loud. And if there's a disagreement on the direction of the project, let's say it out loud, because one of two things will happen. Either the direction that that person believes we should be moving in actually is a more interesting direction, and that will come out in the debate, or it forces the people that are championing the current direction to be more clear, and it fine tunes the messaging in a way that ultimately serves all new people entering the project in a better way. And I think in our messaging especially, we're still in that culling stage where we're getting rid of all the fat so that we can be really lean when we go into our launch. And that's a natural process. Some of it is just, the product is still evolving. I mean, the NFT creator suite, I think, will probably become one of our core components of the protocol. And it wasn't even in the original proposal. It's just that we built our internal mentor dApp so well that it was like, well, it wouldn't be that hard to just make this consumer facing. And so those, I would consider that a lucky break of setting things up properly. And I think there's an old adage that's something like luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and that's the reason to do things with integrity, is that ultimately those forks in the road fork us towards better places that were not even planned for. And um yeah, so I guess that's my rant on that, but I'm definitely in agreement that we need to make it as intuitive as possible, make it as simple as possible, and whenever possible, cull the fat of our messaging. Anybody else have anything, want to come up to the stage and chat? Otherwise, I know Ono has some more to talk about. What's up, Tweetbit?
Just as a little side humor, are we going to be offering, you mentioned SAAS, right? SAAS.
Mm-hmm.
So along with that package, are we going to be offering shit posting as a service as well? I'm wondering.
The way I would like to set up the agency gallery is to basically have vendors come to us and say, hey, I am willing to offer this service to your clients, and here is my track record of success doing it. And then basically part of what we'll do is our marketing team will build out some sales copy for that vendor. And then any business that they pick up through our agency board, will 20% of that will go into the treasury. Just we'll figure out what the right percentage is, but it's probably 15 or 20%. So if you want to put together a really solid shit posting package and somebody buys it, we can decide as a community if we want that to be one of our vendor services. All right. If somebody else wants to come up to the stage, feel free to request it. In the interim, I'm going to let Ono ask some more questions.
All right, rapid fire here.
Yeah.
So, as I'm going through, I was just wanting to know, as you guys grow, look to develop the marketplace. I know early on we had conversations and I think a vote around, or I think these are actually just your thoughts around going the degen route or the more professional suit and tie route in terms of a marketplace. So when people begin to approach the, NFTreasure and looking to mint, is there such thing as 2D And I'll give one example before I ask my next question. As I look at different marketplaces, I see a lot of very poorly drawn NFTs that have phallic objects in them, and I'll leave it at that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an open source free speech, all creative expression is good creative expression guy. But as a community, I think we have to decide, do we want to have terms around that? One way, when I was at Consensus, Charles Hoskinson, the Cardano founder and lead, was talking about how they're going to be building their dApp store to allow for open innovation. Anybody can build on Cardano. However, they're going to have a certification program that says this is a protocol that has had either the code certified or the project has been certified. And so there's a stamp of approval. And in the Cardano algorithm, those certified projects will have a kind of boost. So they're still allowing for full free expression, but there's an advantage to doing it within the framework that the community has decided is best for the Cardano economy. And so in our constitution, as we kind of formulate our DAO constitution and what our governing values are going to be, we could have a similar system where maybe we decide that we want people to be able to express what they want to express. We don't want to be in the business of censorship. However, we do have a kind of certification program where if X a number of people in our community up or down vote a project, then it gets a badge or something. So I think that type of meritocracy system is more meaningful and is a better driver of good behavior rather than just telling somebody that they can't do something.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that, because there's, when you go open source and when you go marketplace, you want everyone to be able to buy and sell what they're putting out, and to express themselves freely, because truthfully, that's where a lot of great art and a lot of really cool things can happen. So I know whenever you as a project, not you as John Ray, but you as like a creator, try to place weights on people's shoulders or create restrictions, it can be like a huge turnoff. So I kind of just wanted your thoughts on that. And my next question is twofold. What are your opinions on 10K mint sizes for projects? And also, or do you guys plan on implementing some type of rug protection? And when I say that, I mean, for people who are building in your ecosystem, is there some type of recourse for, minting and then just kind of running off? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think 10K is interesting in that if you can sell it in the right way and get that many people in to buy into your project, it can really give you some runway to build something really cool. So a 10K project is a great bootstrapping mechanism for having the funding to, one, especially if there's a token involved, to be able to support the liquidity that the project would need. And two, it just makes it, if the team is solid, it makes it more likely that that project will succeed, because even though you can succeed with very little funding, when you have funding, it gives more wiggle room for mistakes and for really kind of experimentation, right? So I think ultimately it just depends on what the project goals are and how well at communicating their project they are. There's a ton of 10,000 piece projects that only sell 3,000, only mint 3,000 pieces, and they should have been a 3,000 piece project. And so you kind of have to just know what your capability is. And it's one of the things that I've been contemplating, with our own flagship NFTreasure release is, well, in a bear market, what's the right price point to sell out a 10,000 piece collection, and how does it reflect on us if we don't? And does it, is there a case for a slow burn project that sells out over a much longer period of time as momentum picks up? A lot of these just are image issues. I think it's fine if a 10,000 piece collection sells out over an 18-month period, as long as you can control the PR around that. So again, it's a messaging thing, and it needs to be aligned with what the ultimate goals of the project are. I forget what your second question was, but I had an answer to it.
I'd be happy to reiterate it. Just a like a rug protection for
That's
maybe
right.
the consumers. Yeah.
Yeah, totally open to what that could look like. I haven't thought deeply on it, other than one thing that I would like to have in our marketplace as part of the data aggregator suite, is a checklist of things that we as NFTreasure believe are important in a project. So these are things like, well, if you watch my network effects video, I think an interesting starting point for that checklist is the NFX wheel. All of the rungs of that bullseye are interesting things to notate. It's not that a project has to have all of those things, but if they only have the outer ring, which is the belief ring, then it's a hype project. And so, what we can do for sure is provide data that allows people to make better investment choices by at least being able to say, okay, well, 10,000 people have filled out this checklist about this project, and the overall score is a 61. Am I the type of person who invests in 61 percentile projects, or do I feel more, is my risk tolerance more a 90 percentile project? Because of course there's going to be projects that on our ranking scale maybe rank a 40, or they rank a 15, and then they absolutely crush it. And so it has to be with a grain of salt. But of course, more information widens the decision space, which allows us to make more meaningful decisions, and really have a deeper understanding of what we're actually putting our money into. So one of the best protectors against rugs is just a deeper level of analytics and information about what a project actually is. And I do think that as part of the NFTreasure data aggregator, that's something that we can easily offer. Whether there is some kind of an ancillary product that is like an actual insurance product, I don't even know where to start with what the potential regulatory concerns of that could be, and where the potential failure points are. But like, just as a concept, it sounds like a good idea, right? Like it would be nice if that was something that I could purchase, and it would give me a sense of relief. So I know as a marketer and an entrepreneur, anytime I have a product that gives somebody a sense of relief, that's a product that people will buy. So does it make sense for us to think more deeply on what that could look like? And is that a product of NFTreasure? Maybe. I think it's the type of thing that could easily, somebody in the community could think it out and build a business plan and submit it as a proposal. And if the numbers make sense, then maybe it's something that we add on the back end. But I think the low hanging fruit is having a really visually obvious checklist that is, we could call it our 90-point NFT checklist or whatever it is. And basically for each project, we maybe we have certified people in the community who are certified to go through these projects and rank them based on that checklist. But then maybe anybody that's logged in with their wallet, like any wallet, could vote on a project, and so you can see the curated score and you can see the community score, kind of like Rotten Tomatoes has the critic score and the community score. So I don't know, it could be something like that, but I'm certainly open to other ideas. I just haven't thought that deeply on it.
Yeah, no, those are actually really good thoughts because you kind of place the ball in the consumer's court, which is where it really is, to begin with, and having those analytic tools like if you go on Magic Eden, which is a Solana-based NFT marketplace, they have those statistics, and you can see how many holders there are for a certain size of a project, and to me, it's a huge red flag when I'm looking at buying, like, let's say an OK Bears, which is just hot right now, and 700 holders, but a 10,000 piece set collection. For me, that just raises a lot of red flags. That means a lot of the a lot of the wallets aren't really unique, and that just tells me, okay, maybe time to move on, or else you're going to get dumped on, kind of thing. So those are some really good thoughts, John. I appreciate that. I'll pass it over to Tweet. He's got his hands up.
Yeah, Tweet, while you come on, let me just finish my thought on that. So one of the things that I definitely want to do is have some visualizations on wallet percentages for sure. So, of the top 50 wallets, how much of the project do they own? Because you're right, that's a great indicator of if there's going to be a potential dump point down the line. The other thing that I want to be the NFTreasure kind of flagship analytic, and one of the things that we become known for is this heat map that Crypto Rodney, and a couple of people on the development team are helping me think about. But it's basically, I mentioned it last week, it's somewhat similar to the Alethio network map, but it's basically a way to say, okay, I hold a Bored Ape yacht, and let me see all of the other projects that those wallets also hold. And so it becomes this discovery tool where I can be like, oh, that's interesting. Look at all of these people that hold Bored Apes are now buying this new project. Maybe they know something. It's just a key indicator or a signal, and it needs to have confluence with it. Just like any trading strategy, like there needs to be 3 or 4 points of confluence before we can really be confident to move forward. But I think it's a really interesting visual to kind of have this heat map that showcases, okay, there's 1,100 wallets in Chicken, and of those wallets, 600 of them own a Hoppers game, and 900 of them own an NFT. And so being able to visualize that and kind of on a regular basis have that updated to showcase movement in the market, I think can be a really interesting discovery tool. All right, Tweetbit, what's up?
On that point too, you could basically say that have someone on the other side in your development team try to crack that. In other words, let's say you set up that system, have someone go against it and gamify it somehow and ask themselves, okay, well, how can I use this to my advantage, or where are the weaknesses and everything else? Just keep that in mind as you're developing it too, because if it can be gamed, it will be gamed one way or another.
Yeah.
Your scoring system, that. The other thing I was thinking of too was we see this on Beefy Finance, and this isn't NFT related, but we're seeing more and more the scoring system for different protocols, and I really like that idea. Basically, because you have, like I said, we all get up through the morning, we have our coffee, whatever. we go throughout our day, and there's points where energy is high and low. We just want to be able to look at something, identify if it's safe or not, and decide whether we want to invest in it. That's a great way to think about it.
Mhm.
There was something else I was gonna say. Again, I lost the thought. Um, Give me a minute here. I just need a moment. There was
Yeah.
something else I was gonna bring up, but I'll turn off the mic for the moment.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of the things that is a passion for me is just teaching the things that have worked for me and the things that haven't worked for me. And I think a lot of us in the crypto community are educators at heart, and we have clear battle scars from being in such a vicious market over the past years. And to some extent, like when we come out of battle, and even if we have some scrapes, bumps, bruises, and scars, like if we're still living to tell the tale, there's kind of an internal urge that we have to share that knowledge. And so, take a little time, as it has presented some ideas for what learn to earn could look like, and I'm having conversations with a few other people in the community. And I think that there's definitely, to empower investors, and to give them a framework that allows them to have a deeper level of confidence in their trades and their investments, and maybe truncate what that investment time looks like. I think there's a right way to teach some of that, and to harness some of the knowledge that has been hard earned in this community, over the years. Yeah, go ahead, Tweetbit.
Thanks. Shoot. Oh, trust but verify. That's what I was going to next.
Mm-hmm.
Old Russian saying, Ronald Reagan used it in the 80s. I think, as far as Treasure is concerned, the more you can trust a project, the less you would need the verification. We can offer that as a way of letting projects on board quickly. And then, of course, if it's from a bunch of unknown people, maybe there could be a gradient, a scoring system, just like we have with Smart Coin, where you do X, Y, and Z. You're in this tier, that tier, this tier, and there's certain benefits for the creators, complying. For example, KYC, maybe they're, like I said, maybe they have plenty of experience from other projects, maybe they have, and so on. You could probably come up with different criteria. But I think having a gradient of, okay, trustworthy to not trustworthy, and having tiers within that system, and then you get certain privileges as a creator, for within the treasure system. Certain, let's say you released a project and it was successful. Well, guess what? You get a few more privileges, to incentivize them to use the treasure system again.
Yeah.
And yeah, forgive my rambling here. My mind just goes off, and then just
No,
goes.
I think it's an interesting idea, and I think we as a community will have to decide how much do we want to lean into verification and KYC, wallet reputation type things. I mean, I can tell you, I see Avi on the call too. As the people who have to do all the wallet checks, we don't ever want to have to do that again. So, the I like the idea of incentivizing behavior. So maybe there's additional features that are available to somebody who does something that is good for the ecosystem. I am adamantly against ever punishing someone for being a bad actor. Like I just think it's not the right way to go about it. Like we can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and there's a way to incentivize tokenomics and create a community vibe where we won't be as sufferable to that zero sum game. Of course, crypto is always going to be a zero sum game. I mean, I think that's one of the big lessons that came out of the smarter coin experiment, and it's a great thing to know is that that's the game we're playing. But there are levels to that, right? And we can incentivize in a way where, of course, we want people to take profits, but if the tokenomics are set up in the right way and the project is sustainable through an actual business, it should have way less of an impact when somebody wants to take profits because they need to live their life. anyhow, so I think it's a to be determined type thing. If it's something that's meaningful to you or anyone in the community, the right way to go about it is to think it out fully and submit it as a fully fleshed proposal that has enough information in it for the community to make an informed decision of yay or nay. Dash, what's up?
What's up, John? How are you doing?
Hey, I'm well.
I'm just here to say some positive things. I had my share of doubting and being angry about the whole experiment. I revisited the experiment a few times, and I just want to remind the community and remind myself, because it was actually a nice reminder. The whole thing when we first started Jade, it was ape and peace, and I think it's like it should be used now. I talk to Nate all the time, and I talk to some like in real life friends about like Jade. I'm like, there's nothing better to invest in beside Jade right now. So it's literally the time to actually ape in peace. Definitely not financial advice, but I'm gonna ape hard in Jade soon. So just reminding the community of like the good times. We had our ups and downs. No doubt that we've been doing, not we, you guys and Avis here, you guys have been doing great job. I don't know, like some people say like, oh, it's their job, there's no need to thank them, they get paid. I truly don't give a fuck. You guys deserve the thank you. Alve, you're doing great job on the Discord. I think I mentioned you a few times, and I thank you for your work on the Discord. But you guys are amazing. I can't wait for what's coming next. I'm very hopeful. I don't know what you said. I speculate a lot on some of the stuff you say because I believe that you don't just like throw words out there. So being ready for the next crypto wave is a great statement. Whether you tell me not to speculate on it or not, I'm still gonna do it. But
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and of course, everybody that is working in Jade gets a paycheck, and it is our job, and so we're gonna show up for the job regardless because we're people of integrity, and we're trying to build something, and there's a reputational loss that happens if we don't do what we said we were going to do. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that when a bunch of hate is getting slung at us, that it's not demotivating. And I will say that it has been absolutely satisfying how much the community sentiment has shifted, over the last month and a half. And it's the credit to some of the core ideas that the founders had as they invented buy button and the floor price and splitting the treasuries, and we can debate about when those things should have happened, but certainly it creates a scenario that I think we can use as a foundation to push off against as we move into whatever comes next. And I'm really excited about the further maturation of Jade and now NFTreasure, or Smarter Coin into NFTreasure. And I really think that we're in an interesting position where we can use the bear to build and be set up for what's going to be important in the next wave, which is, I feel, SaaS crypto products that are built like an actual business, and treasuries that are being well managed by a collective. And more we're going to see that the insight of the community, especially as our community continues to grow, is going to become an interesting mechanism in the marketplace. Oh, did you hear the Jade Alpha Army thinks this is a good investment? Like, that's going to become a thing in the future. And those of us who are early can ride that wave of satisfaction as that meme carries its way through crypto.
I just have a quick question about NFTreasure.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing on the time frame, and what what is the first release of anything related to NFTreasure? I know that it's going to be mainly the game, like the key, upgrading the key, opening boxes. When should we expect that? I remember you posted the roadmap. Are we still following that?
For the most part, yes. So the first release is going to be the marketing website, which will go live next month. And as part of the marketing website, there will be a published roadmap. So we're going to attempt to get as much done as possible before the release of that public facing website. And basically, the things that will launch first will be the marketing website and actually the agency page, because we want to start onboarding launch partners as part of the agency, and start to bring in revenue. So the agency will start bringing in revenue to the treasury likely before the launch of the game, but um, I think in July, I'll be able to have some tighter timelines for you. I mean, the way that we're talking about it right now is we need to have marketplace, game, and the creator toolkit done this summer, is what we've been saying. And so, you know, I'm very reticent or hesitant to give a specific timeline until we finish the VE Treasure contract, because that's kind of the last of the complicated contracts that we have. We started with the game. We're building out some of this other stuff in tandem, but the other stuff is open source. It's relatively simple to nothing simple, but it's simpler than building something custom. And so once the DeFi loop and the game is finalized, the rest of it is not. Right now, we're inventing a lot of new territory. Like, we're inventing a game that never existed. We're inventing smart contracts that have never operated in this way. So it's somewhat of a slog. And then the VE Treasure contract in and of itself is like 3,000 lines of code, and integrating that with our other contracts is just more complex than anything else we're going to be building. Once that's built, we can have a much more fine-tuned timeline around everything else. And so my hope is that those contracts are finished in the coming weeks. Then that will give us a much more accurate picture of what the timeline for the remaining feature set is. And then as a community, I think one thing that we should vote on is, do we launch, what feature sets are our minimum viable product? Do we launch before the raffle swap is ready? Do we wait for the raffle swap? I know that we all kind of have that itch of, I just want to get into this thing. And we have to put our entrepreneur hat on and think about when is the right time to actually launch a product. And it serves us all to launch it at the right time in the marketplace and with the right feature set to create the supply demand equilibrium that we're looking for. So ultimately, we'll move it to a vote. We'll have a handful of options that here are the feature stacks that we could launch with, and the community will decide what the minimum viable product looks like. But as far as the timelines attached to each of those features, I want to have that with the release of the marketing website in July, at which point we can start to have those conversations about, okay, well, here's where we are. We know it's going to take X amount of time to finish the raffle swap. It's going to take X amount of time to finish the heat map. So are these things important for the launch, or do we want to launch right away? And that will be probably the hardest decision that we've had to make collectively as a community, because it's going to require that we push selfish urges aside and put our entrepreneur hat on. And the entrepreneur has to think long term about the holistic vision of the project, and hopefully, in an ideal world, there's a happy medium between those two where we can agree that, based on this feature set and this timeline, everybody can feel really good about the launch. And that's ultimately what we want, is to have everybody in high enthusiasm for the launch, because that enthusiasm then ripples out into the rest of the marketplace. And if the right supply demand equilibrium is there early on, it means that some of the early charts look interesting, which brings more looky-loos into the project. So that was a long way of me deferring the answer to that question to July.
It's okay. I kind of got used to it, but yeah, the answer is very comprehensive. It's not a bad answer at all. It's actually better than like, we're gonna launch this at this time, but giving an insight, like an insight of what's going on, is way better than like at that time, because you gave the room, or you have the room for something to happen in between, for votes, for upgrades, for delays. All of this is better than promising a day and then not meeting it. So
Yeah.
that was a good answer. One of the things I just wanted to add when you were talking is, I think humans, I don't want to generalize, but I would just generalize for now. Humans tend to lose interest very fast when they get bored of something.
Mm-hmm.
Something I noticed in the chicken project, I'm not saying positive or negative or anything, is they tend to, even if something is ready and like in house, they don't release it right away. I think they
Yeah.
tend to release something, and then after a month or two, they release something else. A month or two, release something else. Um,
Yes.
I know we're gonna vote on some, like on these stuff, but I believe if we have a lot of things ready, don't like serve all the food at one time. Just give
Yeah.
little portions to keep the ecosystem going. And I think this creates a sentiment of investors coming in with expectations of like something coming next, and then something's gonna come after that. So
Yes.
that's just my 2 cents, and I will let the stage go to whoever is next. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Very well said, and I do agree with the drip format of let's slowly release things over time instead of waiting for everything to be perfect. Because just just in announcing things as potential features in a staggered way has been incredibly valuable in the building of those things and the brainstorming of those things. And so I agree that we just need to decide what the minimum viable product is, then we need to launch it, and then we need to continue to build out the functionality that ultimately will create the tightest tokenomics and the most sustainable platform that we can build. But there's certainly some leeway and some wiggle room in what that looks like. You can actually, as we know, you can actually run a Ponzi for a decent period of time before it crumbles. So we'll just have to decide where we want to live on that risk curve. Oh no, what's up?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ride off of that same thought that we were just on in terms, and then you mentioned a minimum viable product, and how you guys are kind of battling whether or not, you start with MVP, or you kind of just ride it out, push timelines back further, and get the entire project completely done and then release. And I do want to offer this perspective with in terms of minimum viable product. I think it'd be a good place to start there, because one thing I think is super valuable is the user experience. And I know that that's probably on the forefront of your mind, so I'm not going to really beat that horse. But the way I've seen some projects launch and then develop was they launched with the minimum viable product, and then they slowly made user experience corrections over time, being both fast and agile. And the way I've seen the community react to that was very, very positive. When the community is like, "Oh, I don't like the way this auction took place because of XYZ," well, devs are listening and they're like, "Okay, give us an hour, boom, announcement fixed or
Yeah.
chain." I think, and then also there's that aspect of being agile within this, and then that's probably the hardest part, especially as you don't want to front load UX work because you guys want to get to the big thing. But I think those things are super valuable in the interim. So I'll let you
Yeah.
respond to that, and I do have a follow-up question.
Sure. I mean, one, that's what the beta is, right? So we're trying to do that as we go. I mean, we're literally releasing one bug fix at a time, and you know that can be a really annoying process in the early stages and become much more fun as the full feature set is built out. So one, I've really appreciate everybody that has spent time going through each release in such a tedious way, because I know it's testing the same things over and over again, but it is valuable, and it does allow us to move faster and to see things with a collective eye, right? Two, yeah, the thing that came to me when you were talking about the community calling something out and then you fixing it right away is when I first started as a consultant. One of my consulting coaches used to talk about this strategy where when you're pitching ideas to a client, you always purposely leave something out of the proposal that you know that they want, so that they can then look at your proposal and have their own input and basically say, hey, would you add this thing in, which is a thing you wanted to add in anyway. So there's some psychology in there that definitely makes sense, where it's like, yeah, let's just release the UX with this bug that we already have the fix to, and then when the community asks us to fix it, we'll just push the fix immediately, and they'll be like, wow. So I want to be totally transparent with everybody in the community. We're not going to do that, but it did remind me of psychologically that is a powerful thing, to be able to take input and then implement it quickly.
Yeah, that is honestly the funniest thing I've heard all day. Like, I can't even believe I can't believe that anyone would lead with that. Like, yeah, we'll leave a bug there because they're gonna notice, and then we're gonna fix it, and it makes us look like superheroes. Which I would agree, from a consumer perspective, it worked. But my question I had was, as you guys look to approach the marketplace as competitors, maybe you don't even see yourself as such, maybe an extension, like you kind of mentioned earlier, or just building on top of, when you use the pie analogy, is what are some problems that you guys look to fix as a marketplace as whole? And I'll give a couple examples before I kick it over. One thing I notice Avalanche specifically suffers from in terms of NFT marketplace is volume. We really struggle with volume.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a part of several mints. Secondary market sales are really, it's either you get lucky and make those sales and then post close to floor, or you capitulate and post below floor and take a loss or take less profit. Those are two things, both the secondary market sales maybe bolstering and then volume. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, well, volume is definitely an issue on Avalanche, and I think it's why people sometimes scoff at Avalanche being able to have a healthy NFT ecosystem. What's his name? Cryptofish from Trader Joe had an interesting thread where he was talking about it only takes 2 or 3, maybe just 1 or 2 heavy hitting NFT projects to basically create the NFT ecosystem on Avalanche. And, one thing as a multi-decade marketer that I don't see many NFT projects doing is setting aside money for advertising. I mean, Facebook now allows crypto advertising. Like, there are plenty of 2-step advertising strategies, which is basically where you're running an ad for some problem that you solve and then offering a free solution that then 2 steps them into the paid solution. And one of the things that I think could be really valuable in the NFT space is just a proper advertising budget allocation to a campaign that actually brings new entrants into the marketplace. And that almost always in a 2-step strategy looks like some kind of free education. You're teaching someone how to solve a problem that they have, and then you're sharing in that goodwill that they now have for you because you gave them a free solution, and then you're pitching them a project. So that can be a very effective use of an advertising strategy, and something that I'd like to play around with. And ultimately, like, one of the reasons that Amen mention the smart coin marketing is because we're one of the only projects that was actually running paid ads. And so we brought a ton of new users into the Avalanche ecosystem. So all it takes is a handful of projects that are running a heavy advertising budget. And Smart Coin brought a lot of new people into the AVAX ecosystem. So it's a true testament to just what having a good marketing campaign looks like. And so I think that's one of the things that the NFTreasure agency can solve for. What was your other question?
Yeah, I think that was, you pretty much covered it. It was just the secondary sales bolstering maybe somehow, and then you're doing that through the raffle swap. So, but
Yeah.
as something as just off the top of your head, what are some things that you guys look to do to promote secondary sales? I mean, it ties right into volume, but it's
Yeah.
kind of a concern that I see.
Yeah. So discovery tools, they're not good discovery tools right now. And I hate the fact that on most marketplaces you cannot side scan into other NFTs. You have to always click back to the main page and then click on the single. And so some of it is just going to be better UX design so that it is easier to go down the rabbit hole, right? An infinite scroll is a powerful thing, and when Instagram taught us that, and so just utilizing some of the UX design that creates a psychological situation where somebody is getting the dopamine hit that you get from being on a hunt for something. That's part of it, and I think the other part of it is using analytics as discovery tools. Like, there are some interesting analytic platforms out there, but they have terrible UX design and they are not positioned as a discovery tool for finding projects. They're used like that by savvy investors, but they're not intuitive in any way to showcase, hey, if there's 1,100 wallets in Chicken, and last week 600 of them moved into this project, maybe this is a project to look at. Like that type of discovery tool, using analytics as a way to showcase momentum, can be an interesting way to pull people deeper down the rabbit hole. So right now, the way that I see a lot of new entrants searching out projects is like somebody said, hey, I own XY NFT, or some YouTuber says, hey, this is a new NFT project that's launching, and then they go directly to that NFT project and they look through the first page of NFTs and they decide, I can't really afford this floor. The floor is already too high, or it already minted out, or I didn't get on the whitelist. And then that's the end of the discovery. But imagine if you could then click over to the analytics dashboard for that project and you see, oh, that's interesting. All of the people that minted in the last 20 days also are buying into this project, and I actually can afford this project. That's a discovery tool that opens up more volume. And so that's the type of way that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And part of that, I do want to offer an idea. So I hopefully this idea is valuable to you. To get your pen and paper ready to influence secondary market sales. Is there's always this notion of emotional buying, right? A lot of us purchase based off of the way we feel. And this is actually something that happened to myself, and I actually experienced in real time. Was I was auctioning, and I do a lot of private and public auctions for NFTs. As I was auctioning, I had about 50 AVAX that I was looking to utilize to make some purchases. I lost an auction. I just got outbid simply, and it went up to like 36 AVAX. Right. I was pretty bummed that I lost it, but once that auction kind of finalized, I was like, well, then what next? And that's when the idea spawned. What if you just roll that member into another purchase that they might want to make, right? So they put a max bid of 36, meaning, okay, this person has 36 AVAX they're looking to spend. Maybe it's not on the one that they want, but there could be a pop-up like, oh, sucks to suck, seen you lost an auction. Here's a list of XYZ NFTs that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
Here's one at the floor, and then here's another NFT that is the highest rarity that is also for sale. You know,
Yeah.
so you kind of pose both of those out and say, boom, would you like to see this? Are you interested in this? And I think that's a good way to promote secondary sales.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of scammy, right? But I mean, we're all subject to it. Look at
Right.
Amazon,
I
Facebook.
was just about to say that is what made Amazon successful. And discovery tools are the reason that Amazon won that battle. And I love what you just described. And basically the way that it would work from a data set perspective is, okay, we know all the wallets that just minted into this project. So what are the projects that they've also minted or purchased over the last 15 to 30 days? And then the recommendation basically comes from the confluence of that data set, and then is simply recommended in the UI right below the fact that, hey, you didn't win this bid, but here are some projects that people who are in this project purchased over the last 15 days or something.
Yeah, so I think it's just a brilliant kind of tactic, I suppose, to bolster secondary sales. So hopefully that was valuable to you. I really like the idea of like myself, because I, believe it or not, I ended up taking that 36 AVAX and spending on a bunch of stuff. But you know, that's why I said, you know, this was kind of something I thought of in real time. Like, you know what if people could implement that? And it really, you know, and another aspect of it was missing out on a mint, right? Like I mentioned, I've been a part of a handful of mints now, and same concept. What I seen happen in real time was there were projects that haven't minted out yet that were just kind of pending under the mint tab, and these people missed out on a newer mint. And when they missed out, they just brought their money over to the one that hasn't minted out yet. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's an awesome, like, you know, from my standpoint at least, that's an awesome emotive response to not getting what you want, or you know, FOMOing and then actually missing out.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see, you know, the project owner at the time kind of be like, okay, we're 50% minted, and then in one fell swoop, completely minted out. I was like, man, that is beautiful. And I think there's probably good ways to foster that. And I'm sure you're thinking, okay, there's psychology here, marketing here, pop-ups here, but just some ideas for you guys as you look to build in the space.
Yeah, I love it, and I think it's the type of idea that, you know, is easily actionable. So I always want to hear any and all ideas like that, even ideas that aren't good. I want to hear because oftentimes a bad idea after some conversation turns into a good idea. So let's always be transparent about the things that we're thinking. You know, I'll just say this out loud in the spirit of sharing bad ideas, that there is a real interesting mechanism for us having Google style advertising within NFTreasure, because we as a marketplace will have so much data, and you know, we can debate whether that is something that we want to bring into Web3. It could certainly be a revenue grabber, but as a discovery tool, I actually love getting served ads. The algorithms in my phone are so dialed in that every time I open up Instagram, I end up buying something because the algorithms just get me. After 10 years of being on Instagram, they know exactly what I need at any moment in time. And so, you know, if I'm a new NFT project and I know that the type of community that I want, you know, is the community that Hopper's game has, then, you know, it's open source. Like, I can pull all of those wallets, and if any of those wallets are logged into NFTreasure, I can serve an ad based on the projects that they're invested in. So anyhow, something that would be more complicated to build out, but certainly an interesting use of the data that we're collecting. Avi, I think you were next if you want to share something.
Oh, I'm good. I'm just sitting here messing around on Figma, and I figured I would drop in and listen to the conversation.
Cool.
But one thing I will say, I guess, is this was a while back, but Dash had said kind of like, thanks for working on all this stuff. And I think it's like, we obviously really appreciate that. The other thing I want to say is that the community for sure has been kind of the source of inspiration for a lot of ideas recently. And I'm excited that we're, I guess, moving more in a direction where that's going to
be kind of like more at the forefront.
Yeah.
And we're even seeing, I think, a lot of people popping into Discord now. It's just like a slow trickle, but people who are kind of seeing the value in Jade amidst all of the anarchy that's going on in crypto right now. So we're in the right place at the right time, I think, and it's just going to be kind of a matter of time before all the chips start falling into place.
Yeah, for sure. Keith, what's up?
Hey guys. Yeah, I was some notes because I had comments on all the stuff you guys are saying. And first off, I really love your comment about really asking for really crappy ideas and maybe they could turn into good ones. And I have a ton of those. So
perfect.
so I'll shoot. First off, I also loved your comment on about the devs and having like the fake problem of it being solved beforehand. It reminded me of the sales pitch. I forget who it was, but he basically would have like a deal for them that would essentially make it more affordable, some monthly whatever. And the way that he would say, he wouldn't tell them about it. He would basically sell them, and then at the very end, he would say, "Is there anything basically that is stopping you from doing it? Is it the product? Is there anything about the product?" And it would basically just come down to price. Be like, "Oh," and then provide the solution. That's what that reminded me of. But,
there's a handful of coaches that coach that flavor of sales.
Yeah, and it's kind of but and then also even before that, I think you're even talking about kind of like keeping a hype plan of sorts. And I've always played around with that idea also of even, hey, what if you almost just started a project and started working on it and hitting certain parts of the roadmap almost 3 months out. And then you start saying you're delivering them just to always stay on top of it. And when something comes up, you say, hey, we're going to deliver on this, but then show like a video tease of something that's going to be coming. Then when you deliver it, and then also have like a sneak peek of something else. But you kind of have a plan that's always like, we're delivering and then also showing that there's more. Because I think sometimes there's a, hey, this is coming up, I get the hype, okay, and then it's here, and then people like, okay, that's it, and then it under delivered, and they're going, well, is this it? How long is it gonna take for the next thing? And you almost need something sometimes with just people's attention span to be like, because there's this level of like staleness that people can be like, oh, you know what, I just got stale because of just how people are. So food for thought, I guess, on that. But I've always just played around with the idea of like, what if you just plan that out of, hey, we're going to roadmap almost like when we do this, we're also going to kind of give this to also show the direction without giving too much away. Is something that could be food for thought. And then I think with AVAX in general, you guys were talking about, hey, there's not too much volume and whatever. I think people will go to where they have the best projects, they have the best hype, they have like where everything's happening is going. And so like I said, if we can be successful with providing a product that is in fact unique and better, meaning that actually has these like aggregator data points that just kind of changes the game and just makes it super valuable, I think people will come, and our marketing will just add on top of it. But I could tell you, for me, what would make it super valuable is some of those data points of being able to, how I envision it is like a way to say, hey, I can track these projects, sure, the wallets, but even kind of highlight certain projects or investors that I really like these wallets and what they're doing. And I could almost calculate, hey, these are like 10 that I really like. And I'm noticing that they are actually looking at these projects, buying, selling, what have you. And if I could see that data, it'll help me, make a decision on where I want to go, almost like a whale watching type thing. Or I think you guys talked about mint opportunities. I think it's really difficult for people to stay on top of minting opportunities. And so if there's a way that you can say, hey, you can highlight your new mints, almost like you register them with Treasure, and it puts it there, it helps them mint out, but it also tells the community, hey, here's all these minting opportunities that are going to be, at play, kind of playing off Ox's side. And then, hey, you didn't make it on this mint. So, here's another one that you can jump onto also. It helps everyone out. And then even on top of that, like if you could have like a project and have like a snapshot, this would be tough, but say these certain wallets tend to be hodlers and these wallets tend to be flippers. You can somehow look at metrics and say this project has around 20% are hodlers or like 50% hodlers versus, and you have a metric of, they don't tend to hold their whatever project for more than 3 months or something like that. That would really help too, because they're going, look, it's a good project, they sold out, but also there's a chance that they just might in 3 months or so just be completely flipped. Those type of things are super valuable, in my opinion. And I think if we can get to that point, I think not only are people going to flock to us, but they'll also will be kind of an industry standard of, well, why can't we have this, in other marketplaces or in other things, and whatnot. And my last little suggestion is just playing off people's psyche. If we're using in our market that, hey, you know what, either they're minting or they're bidding or they're doing what have you, in the actual project, I love having those things where, hey, if you've done like 10 in a month or something, your 10th one or whatever gets you like a reward, whether it be treasure or like a free something. And then if you get to 20, you get, even more. And it has these like, better things to kind of push people to get to that next one. Also, just knowing people's psyche, they'll go. I mean, I would do it. So
right,
so they would
that punch card mentality.
Yeah. So those are my this week's little ideas.
Yeah, I think those are all great, man. I'll have to think about the right way to even compile the data where we could have the hodler score, but that would be really interesting for sure. The kind of follow trading is also interesting and probably easier to do. So, I think those are things. One, if you could pop them into the Canny feature request board so we can see if other people in the community think they're interesting. I really do believe that our creative use of data can be what sets our marketplace apart. And so the type of things that you're talking about are interesting creative uses of data sets. And if we're going to compete with the top marketplaces, like, we have to innovate at that level. And we have to take what worked in Web 2 and bring it into Web 3. And it's just so crazy to me that when the entire blockchain is open source, that nobody is doing anything more interesting with that data from a discovery level.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, I know some people are trying, and in certain levels, but because it's the Wild Wild West, I just kind of go off of what I envision. Like, that's what I would want. I would want to be able to see those, because if I'm starting a project, I also care, right? One, who's minting, and I want to have at least a certain percentage of like diehard hodler, even whale type people, but you don't want to have only hodlers, right? Even for NFTs, because you do want to have a certain percentage of people who are flipping. So being able to see that from their perspective would also be valuable, and say, hey, it's actually, do certain things, giveaways or whatever, to get more of these type of people. So it would be pretty valuable. I think also with the minting type of things, you could say, hey, we can feature you in our minting thing, and maybe you have some opportunities. They can provide certain things for the community and get on there for free or something. There's a lot of opportunities there, but I think if you have, there's no one place to find them. And I think if you could somehow become like the go-to place for minting on either of those, that alone is worth it.
Yeah. Well, that definitely is something that is feasible with the new creator toolkit. Another interesting feature that's already developed in the toolkit is we will have built-in whitelist functionality, so somebody can easily create a whitelist, collect wallets, and whitelist their collection. But one thing that I was thinking about the other night when I was looking through everything, I was like, oh, what would be an interesting thing for all of our diamond hands is anytime somebody is on the back end setting up their mint, if there's a button that says, do you want to allow NFTreasure founders onto your whitelist? And they just click that button, and all diamond tiers who are the NFTreasure founders are automatically kind of put onto some of those whitelists. Would be interesting.
I like that button. Make it really big.
Yeah. It's required to push this button.
Yeah. And if you don't, you go to the X and like the pop-up shows up. Are you sure you don't want to click the
Yeah. There's like a 10-step breakdown.
Yeah. I always think it's funny when like you don't subscribe and it's like, yes, subscribe, don't, I hate myself. Have you seen those?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, those are the only options, huh? Get on your list or I hate myself.
Exactly. But that's how it is. All right. Well, I'll step down. Just wanted to throw some stuff.
Cool. Avi, what's up?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like we've definitely talked about a lot of interesting metric ideas. There definitely are projects doing, I think, most of what we've talked about. There's one in particular called Laser Tools, which I think is really interesting. They're on Ethereum, and they basically have their whole. I mean, it's like a service basically, right? But they have like an access pass, and their supply is limited to about 2,000. So kind of similar to what we're doing with the NFTs in some ways. And I think it'd be interesting to. I sent you a DM on Telegram with the website, so you can check it out. I am on the whitelist for it, along with a few other people in the Jade Discord, thanks to Parali's NFT giveaway. So I think we can definitely be resources for the project if you guys want to check out like what they're doing, see what they could maybe be doing better. But yeah, just if you go to their website, it's laser.tools, and it's laser with a Z. They have, obviously all the volume and trade trackers, but they also have like, they can identify sell walls on certain NFT collections. They have whale alerts that track movements. They allow you to do rarity sniping. They have like, pretty detailed collections trackers. They also kind of like that whole idea of like a wallet rep. They do some stuff related to that as well. So I thought it was maybe of interest to take a look at what they're doing.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Thanks for sharing. And it's, if so many of these tools are getting developed on Ethereum, and I don't know if they have cross-chain functionality built in or not, but one of the most interesting stories that I think could come out of NFTreasure is if we become the creator community that basically creates the AVAX NFT movement. Of course, there's some great projects already on AVAX, but none of them are approaching $100 million, $1 billion levels, and I think that once you have projects that are ramping up into those levels, that's where billions of dollars of PR comes in, and it's why Ethereum, I think, has become the home of so many NFT projects, is because every NFT project wants to be a $1 billion project. And so where do you launch if you want to be that? Well, you launch on Ethereum. And as soon as that potential gets opened up on another network, then it becomes more viable for products to be like, well, there's way less competition over on AVAX, and this project hit 100 million in volume. Why couldn't we do it there? And so there's an opportunity, I think, for us to be really strategic in how we utilize our agency to kind of build out a home base on AVAX and kind of own the AVAX aggregator and ride the rising tide and wave of the AVAX and NFT scene. And then we can look at other networks, but AVAX really is primed to have some of these tools, and in many ways we can be a first mover by delivering them on AVAX versus Ethereum. And then when there's enough volume on AVAX, and we've been able to successfully use the agency to mint out some projects, then we can look at other networks and look at competing with some of these people directly on Ethereum. But I think getting our sea legs on AVAX and building up some clout, and then going after some of the more established networks is probably an interesting path for us.
Well, and one note, if I may, real quick, I know Ox has his hand up, but just on that, it's I don't know if you've used different CRMs or different like email blastings. There's so many out there that have these cool tools, but there are some that have way too many bells and whistles, and the user experience just kind of sucks. And there's other ones that the user experience is so much more valuable, and it's so much easier and just enjoyable to use that people just go to it and they completely forget about the other ones. And I think Treasure has the potential. I mean, obviously, I haven't used it, I haven't done the beta and whatnot, but it has so many other things that can go on top of it. Even if it's just an AVAX and not ETH, if it becomes that better user experience overall, just more fun and enjoyable and just easier to use with those tools, people will just go there. And even if they have other tools elsewhere, there might be some other bells and whistles, but that's where people will go just naturally. In my opinion, but.
I think that's right. And I look at a lot of the acquisitions that happen in the space, because as an entrepreneur, you always want to be thinking about what's the exit strategy here. So there's a couple of interesting exit strategies here. One is that we fully decentralize and turn the whole thing over to the community, and it becomes a truly community-led project. And one of the shining examples of what real decentralization looks like, and it just becomes this kind of source of rewards and revenue for forevermore that is run by the community however they want. Another interesting, option could be an acquisition where the community merges with another community, and I've been thinking about from a regulatory perspective, like what would that even look like if one of the larger marketplaces decided that they wanted to buy NFTreasure because the tool set is so robust, just like OpenSea bought Gem. And so, these are the type of things that I think as a community, we can start to map out the probabilities of what it would look like. And, as the founders in the project and as the ones that are reaping the rewards from the base and bonus pools, any of these exit scenarios, ultimately serve everyone that is in the project, especially those on this call who are in super early. So yeah, all interesting things to be contemplating. Oh no, what's up?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to jump into the question I've been holding on for a little while now, because I was hoping maybe we'd cross over it. But what are you guys' thoughts? And when I say you guys, you and the NFTreasure team, or even the Jade team, what are you guys' thoughts on preferential economics for NFT holders? I know it's been some time since there's been discussion around it, but what have you guys considered since the last time we spoke about it?
Yeah, still definitely something that I want to do. We've already built out the rewards directory. It's just not in the beta yet. So the mechanism for delivering those rewards is there. We just need to activate it. I've met with many projects about what preferential economics and whitelist could look like. And kind of the sentiment was, yeah, we'd love to do that, but let us know when you have a working protocol. So some of it I think is going to be tabled until there's something that we can showcase to people. However, one of the ways that I'm thinking about it is like having that button in the Minter where it's like, hey, do you want to let the 7,300 founders of NFTreasure, do you want to let them on your whitelist? Hit this button, and then basically that project would automatically go into the rewards directory. So that's one potential way that I'm thinking about preferential economics within the platform. I'm hesitant to say this out loud because it may not be the right economic decision for the platform, but certainly something that I have contemplated and that we should probably debate as a community is the NFT creator toolkit available for free to diamond tiers or to the founders. That's definitely, something that we can look into is, okay, is this free? Does it make more sense for for us to give a discount, or is it, if we're charging everybody else 5% of their mint, do diamond tier founders, get it at 3%? These are things that we can debate as a community, and we just have to think about early on, we are the investors in the community, and we are going to be the whales in the community. And a project can't survive without some inflow of capital. And so while I'm doing my best to work with our tokenomics quant and the development team to build it out so that literally you can be involved in this project with zero capital outlay if you're a diamond tier. Like, that has always been the goal, is if you don't want to spend any more money, you can be in this project and benefit from it without any capital outlay. But somebody has to put money into this project. And hopefully we're building it out in a way where it seems enticing enough to make some kind of a risk play on it.
Yeah, that's honestly music to my ears. And your response was exactly what I was kind of prodding for. So I'm glad we can kind of cut to the chase there. But yeah, the reason why that came to mind is twofold. And I'll start with me as the investor, is that for NFT holders, I know you and the team have a desire to deliver value to the people who have been around the longest and took early risk. And, not that you owe us anything, but, I took responsibility for my own investment. And, but I know that's something that you guys want to deliver.
Yeah.
So I think that would create more sell pressure, more buy pressure, I'm sorry, on those NFTs specifically, because, imagine, standing outside and you weren't an NFT holder, but these guys have super preferential economics as consumers and as developers, builders, whatever the heck, then people can begin to think, okay, I can offload my own NFT, and profit from that. Second one was me as a builder. How can I come into the ecosystem and leverage, I don't want to say my status, because that sounds very selfish, but truthfully, that's, what I'm thinking is like, as a builder, how can I approach this, and what can I do? What kind of little ticks can I have, or feathers in my hat can I have, kind of thing. So those are my thoughts, and that's why I was kind of prodding, but you cut right to the chase, so I appreciate it.
When I can, I try to. And yeah, I do think, let's face it, we want to deliver that value, but also it's interesting marketing, right? If we have 7,300 diamonds, it's probably closer to 6,900 now, because Avi's got a trigger finger.
Yo, those people are not the type of people that you guys want to have. You should see some of the shit I have seen. Like, okay, I'm sorry. I have to share what we found this morning, John. There was someone who literally created a custom contract to purchase and swap the smarter coin without actually registering the method. So if you go on Snowtrace and you look up a transaction, there's an area that says method, and then it tells you like whether the method was like a mint or a swap or a transfer. So they actually went in, created a custom method, and that was actually able to get them to bypass our like screening mechanism. So they were selling smarter, I think, every 40 minutes, and we're making about like almost 5 AVAX every 40 minutes. For God knows how long. So yeah, people are ingenious, and they came up with a lot of great ways to cheat the system. But yeah, those people are no longer a diamond tier.
Finding people like that is a really good thing to highlight on these calls, though, because it's a great example of how a third party, saw the smart coin experiment, wrote a piece of software to exploit it, and pirated and stole all of the AVAX, and so it supports the narrative that that's actually what happened, and it was less internal nefariousness. Of course, there was messaging that was probably went further than it could have or should have, and we're learning from that and trying to be as transparent as possible moving forward. But contracts like that are really one of the reasons that the high APR experiment was failed. So I digress. Anyhow, getting back to our conversation, I think there's around 6,900 diamonds now. We'll publish the final number once we get up to the bonding event date. But let's just assume that we can get 10% of those over the next 12 months to create some kind of an interesting NFT project in Mint, and they can, and we're empowering them through our Learn to Earn to actually understand like the right way to launch that project so that they can do it successfully, bring new people into the ecosystem. We can show them how to use an external marketing spend to bring people into AVAX. And so we become this mechanism for growing adoption on the AVAX network, and teaching people how to create income, right? You know, the thing that I'm interested in is not only making sure that NFTreasure has interesting tokenomics and looks at as pleasant as possible on all of our wallets. Of course, we want that to happen, but it can be a school for showcasing, hey, do you have an idea? Because here's a platform for launching that idea and making income off of it. And in many ways, like the Learn to Earn can become some of the more entrepreneurial ideas that have to be learned in order to do that successfully. So this leads into how can we honor people who have already done that well? So is it giving, do we have some kind of a check mark or a badge or a certification? Or do we reach out to people who minted out their NFT project and say, hey, we want to build a Learn to Earn around what you did and what worked for you and what you would do differently. And then you're going to earn X percentage of that Learn to Earn for forevermore. It's something like that. Like that's how I want to partner with creators. I want to find the smartest people in the space, the people who are doing it well, the people that have huge networks, and passionate communities, and then empower them to be educators and teachers and make sure that they get paid for that.
I just gotta say, anytime someone says the words "do you like," I think my brain just inserts money. Like, I just hear that video on replay. I think I have PTSD.
Yeah. Anyhow, I don't know if that answers your question. Oh no, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, and I definitely am open to what type of incentives would be interesting to someone like yourself and you know, to any creator that has established a following. You know, I have followings in communities that are completely unrelated to crypto, but you better believe that once I have a mechanism for building an NFT project easily, I'm gonna tap those communities and have an NFT set around entrepreneurship and around woo-woo stuff and use it as a way to bootstrap all of the ideas in my idea journal. And I think we can create the toolkit and the education so that anybody else on this call or in our community can do the same thing. Take a little time. What's up? Oliver, are you there?
Testing. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we hear
Sorry
you.
about that, stupid mic. Yeah, John, can you talk a bit about what we talked about with the timeline? Like, you know, we mapped out the last 5 months, just a bit about how you're going to approach it, and just maybe share with the community what we're talking about with that. Thank you.
Yeah. So Take a Little Time did a great job of basically mapping what community engagement has looked like in this project from the very early stages of Project X being proposed, and kind of all of the communication that has happened around this project. And so I'm having it's actually pretty incredible to watch. It starts in January and brings us up to present day. And it's basically every piece of communication that's come out and mapping the evolution of how this project has been built and really showcasing like the community involvement in the project at each step. And so I'm having my designer turn this into a slide deck that I can then do a video on, so that we can have this as a pin video on the website or the Twitter, where when anybody wants to understand, well, how the hell did this project get born out of such a horrendous chart, we can point them to this video and showcase what the evolution from Smartcoin to NFTreasure has looked like, how that came about, how everything has been turned over to the community, and moving forward, what that rebrand means and kind of the ethos behind it. So it's a really cool document that take a little time spent, a lot of time on, and I really appreciate him putting it together. And it's something that once in video format, I will share it out along with the slide deck, and I think it'll be a really valuable tool for us to be able to communicate how this project from day one, has been community led, starting with the 77 proposals that the community submitted and the voting in Discord. It's been, I'd be curious to hear if there are other projects that had this big of a community involved at this early of a stage in the project. But I think it's definitely going to be a unique case study that, should we prove our thesis and become successful, can be a feather in all of our caps. Anything else you want to share about that? Take a little time, or that you think I missed?
No, John, I think that's really the main goal. I think as however we decide to chop it up, I think another good thing is, whenever we have the critics that want to talk about how this is a scam and the smarter chart, like you said, dropped, we can say specifically, here's back to it. Here's exactly how it developed. Here's the input. Here's the mistakes we made. Here's the changes we made. I mean, it's so transparent. It's kind of ridiculous. So.
Yeah, when I was going back through it, I was like, oh, wow, we did a really good job of being transparent at each stage of this process. And, as much as possible, I hope the sentiment of the community is that they felt like they were involved in each of these stages. And, we will legitimize that even more once we open up our discourse, and basically, right now we have kind of a duct tape way for people to submit a proposal where they flag a moderator. Hopefully that gets put into the proposal section. Maybe there's some lackluster voting in Discord, and then ultimately, if enough people nag me about it, it goes to a snapshot vote. We need a better system, and that's what we'll be moving to over the next 90 days, is a true discourse forum that allows for anybody to, one, understand how a proposal should be formatted and the information that needs to be attached to it, so that there always needs to be enough information in a proposal so that someone, without doing any additional research, has at least enough knowledge to make an intelligent decision about the proposal. And then those proposals will be set in Discord for a certain quorum level, which basically just means the amount of the community that has to agree with a proposal for it to be considered for an on-chain vote. And then at some point, we'll decide if it makes sense for us to have a council, or if the core team will just serve as that. Not the core team, the elected dev team and myself will serve as that council initially. That's a conversation to be had that probably will be one of the first conversations in discourse. But I'm pretty proud about the community members that have engaged with this project and the way that it's come together. And I think it's a better project because of the community insight. And as an entrepreneur, it has definitely presented to me that there's no better way to build a project than to do it in community in real time. Because a lot of the innovations that I think ultimately are going to become the calling card for NFTreasure came out of conversations like this. All right. I've got to jump on a call with Kyron to record another YouTube video. We're going to be talking about research methods and how to go through a white paper efficiently and effectively without feeling overwhelmed. So that's what I'm need to probably just get a drink and take a bio break and then jump on with him. But if there's one or two questions that you have a burning desire to share, we can bring those forward right now. Anybody? Cool. Well, I appreciate everybody being here on the call on a Friday afternoon, evening, depending on where you're at. I always like to listen back to these, and I'm amazed at the ideas and the insight that comes from the questions that everybody asks and the ideas that you bring about. So right now, this is kind of one of the informal ways to raise a signal to say, hey, the project should move in this direction. And so hopefully everybody feels like you have the opportunity to do that once a week, which is at a minimum how often I want to do these Twitter spaces. But like I said, we will be implementing true decentralized proposal process in the coming months. And that's going to be fun just for all of us to really learn effective proposal writing and communication processes. Because one thing that I think is untapped in Web3 right now is there's a lot of discourse happening on that platform, discourse is the proposal platform that a lot of projects are using. And one interesting thing that I've been thinking about as the agency is we can go into any project that has a discourse and buy whatever the threshold they require for their token and submit proposals. And as an agency, if we go into a project that has an open discourse and we propose, hey, here's a shift that we think should happen in the project, and our team and community is ready to implement it, there is a lot of crypto up for grabs in that proposal process. And I think we can build out a strategy that allows us to be a proactive agency going after deals and making deals by collectively building these proposals that we then build out in other platforms. So, whether that's kind of a long tail thought that we can pick up on another time. But for anybody who is entrepreneurial minded or a consultant or has some skill to give, I would definitely start building out a list of DAOs and where their proposals are at. And if there's an open proposal forum and you see a problem or frustration that they're having that you can solve, it's an interesting way to pick up some business and to build a reputation for yourself. So I'll leave you with that. I appreciate everyone here and enjoy your weekend. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.